All right, so there's going to be situations where we will want to have several different options of looks for each individual clip. Let's say that there's two really dope styles for this clip, and I don't know which one I want to go with, but I want to save both of them to the clip itself so that I can very easily switch between them whenever I want. Well, you might think, okay, why don't we just make two separate stills in our gallery over here? So if we go to gallery, we could just, grab a still, save it, and then we can modify the image, get brighter, do whatever we want, add a LUT, grab the still. And now we have those two options over here. And if we ever want to switch between them, we can just go grab the still, throw it over top, and make changes like this. But this is a more tedious way to do this. It actually requires a lot of steps. And you can imagine if you want to have several different versions for every single clip in your timeline, and you have everything within a folder here, that would be very cluttered and unorganized. Even if you created new albums and you named them for each clip, that would be very tedious and wouldn't really make sense. So DaVinci gave us versions to make this process very easy, and I'm gonna be showing you guys how I use versions. So I'm just gonna remove this album over here. Let's delete it. Let's also delete these stills that we created for no reason here. And I'm gonna open up my LUTs here. So let's create a look for this image here. I'm just gonna reset this curve. And why don't we go to our primaries first? We can warm things up a bit, maybe up the tint a little bit. That looks good to me. And let's create a secondary node here for a LUT. So why don't we grab this LUT here, throw it over top of that node. And I'm liking this look. This looks good to me. It might be a bit too much, so why don't we bring the key down, the opacity of that second node, make it a bit softer. That looks good to me. Shift D. That looks like a cool look. So what I can do is now add this to my versions for this clip. So what I can do is right click on the clip here in my clips view and go up to local versions and create new version. Now I can give it a name. So I'll just call it after the LUT, jungle. Click OK. And if I right click on the clip right here, we can see that that is a new version right here. So I can select it whenever I want, and I can go between the versions up here now. Now, obviously, right clicking and selecting them like this is not the best way to do this. It's not efficient. I'm going to be showing you guys some shortcuts. But first, let's create another look. So now what I can do is right click on the clip, local versions, create new version. Let's create another one. So we'll call this one option 2. Click OK. You can call it whatever you want. And if I right click here, we can see that option 2 is selected. So what I can do is delete this LUT here. I can reset my primaries on this first one. And now I'm free to kind of work on whatever I want. So this one, let's keep it cooler here. Let's not really mess with the primaries too much. Option S, let's add a new LUT. So this is just part of the LUT bundle over here. I'm just gonna find something else that looks good. We got LUT 14, that looks cool. That's an interesting new unique look. Let's bring down the key output so it's not as intense. Shift D, turn it on and off. That looks cool. I like that. Now what I can do is right click and add this as a new version, but instead of doing it that way, let's just hit Command Y. And as we can see in the top right, it says a color grading version has been added. So if we right click on the clip now, we can see that a new version has been created right here. Now, because we use the shortcut Command Y, we weren't able to name it. So if we just go over here, we can rename it if we want to. But a lot of the time, you're not even going to need to really name it. It's okay to just leave it version 4, version 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to name them, you can. Personally, I don't really care about naming them. All I really want to do is just be able to save all those versions to each individual clip and quickly be able to flip through them whenever I want. Now, instead of right-clicking on the clip and selecting the versions like this, what we can do is use the shortcut Command B. If I keep clicking Command B, we can see that we are now filtering through all the different versions. So we can see in the top left, version 1 is loaded, version 4 is loaded, option 2 is loaded, jungle is loaded. So we're moving between all the versions just by hitting Command B. And this is huge because you can load up as many versions as you want and just quickly be able to skim through them. So if you're working with a client and you have a clip selected and they want to try something completely different, you can just save what you have currently as a version and then create a whole new version for this clip. And then you can quickly filter through all the different versions and get their opinion on what they think is the best look for this individual clip. And then you can work from there. So just for fun, why don't we make one more version? So Command Y, a color grading version is added. So we can make sure that we're selecting that, version 5, yep. We can select this last node here, delete it. Let's apply a different LUT, something completely different. This is a different vibe. Of course, we gotta make a new node first. Let's apply this here. And just like that, we've changed that last version. So now if we hit Command B, we are filtering through a bunch of different versions here, and we can very quickly see all the different types of styles that we can use for this clip. Now, if at any point we want to delete one of our versions, all we have to do is go into it, right click over here. We can go to the one that we want to delete and just select delete right here. Click delete, and now it's gone. So I'm just going to delete version 1 as well because it's a duplicate of one of the other ones. Delete. And just like that, we are able to very quickly hop between all these different looks for this clip. Now, another really cool thing that we can do is we can actually use the split screen feature over here to look at all of our different versions all at one time. If you're not seeing your versions over here, what you got to do is go to this drop down over here to the top right and make sure versions is selected. That way you are now comparing all of the different versions that are on your selected clip. And what's really cool about this is if we double click on any of our versions, so if I double click on this one, we can see that the node tree for that version pops up in the right. So we can actually do a lot of color grading just like this. We could just double click on the version that we want to modify. So let's say we want to modify this first one over here. And let's say we want it to be darker. We can just make it darker just like that. So we're able to color grade in this way too. The individual version doesn't have to fill the preview window. We can look at a bunch of versions at once and make color grading changes just like this. And this is just an extra tip. This isn't something that I've ever really needed to do, but if you wanted to export all of these versions at once, you can also do that. If we go to the deliver page over here, we could select whatever format we want to export to. Most of the time I do H.264. And if we select individual clips, under file, we have the option to select use commercial workflow. Now with this selected, we're able to export every single version for the selected clip. I've never actually had to do this before, but I could see why for some commercial workflows you might want to do this. Now, if we ever want to just go back and delete all of our versions, we can right click over here and go to local versions and delete all versions. And just like that, we have deleted all the versions. And if we reset this node tree right here, then we are back to where we started.